Hello, I'm Jordan from Soups and Sabers.
And I'm Logan from the Screen Society podcast.
We're continuing our coverage of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Season 1, as Episode 6 brought the season to a close. It is called The Morrow, which was directed by Sarah Adina Smith and written by Ira Parker and T. McKell. Premiered February 22nd, 2026 on HBO and HBO Max. I guess let's just dive in. Logan, how are you feeling with the season all wrapped up?
Oh, I didn't know it was over. No, I'm kidding. I am sad, Jordan, that this show has come to an end. I wasn't ready for it. It's too short. I don't want to be the complainer, but it's too short. I want this show to keep going, and I want more of it. I know we'll get it next year, but that was I love the way it ended. I think it was one of the best things Game of Thrones has, at least in my opinion. And again, I can't wait for season 2 to come around.
Yeah, I was actually I think it was on Reddit. Somebody was like, "I'm gonna wait until the rest of the episodes drop before I watch it," and it was that they said that after episode 5. They're like, "I just watched the 5th one. I'm gonna wait till the rest of them drop and then binge them." I'm like, "There's only one left."
Well, they
So,
don't have the
that's
much
next week.
longer to wait.
You're getting one.
Yes.
And they're like, "That's a short season." But one, I wonder like how you could watch episode 5 and think that this is not drawing to a close, I guess. Um but yeah, so The Morrow, which has kind of the fallout from the death of Baylor, and we have it opening with Lionel and Dunk underneath the tree with Lionel, drinking and inviting Dunk to Storm's End. And Lionel says again, this is all new because Lionel's not in it as much as he is in the novella. But he says, come with me and I'll like love you like a brother. Don't come with me and I'll hate you like a brother.
I love that part. I love that. It's so accurate in this world. Like I feel like the brothers in every single uh riddled family here in the Game of Thrones world end up either killing each other or sleeping with their sister to make them jealous. It's it
Yeah.
definitely has that feel.
But Lionel also has this line that I think is people may see it a little harsh towards Baylor, but Dunk is sad that Baylor died due to his fault, and he's like, he didn't actually really risk anything. He was fighting like 3 guys that were like, sworn to protect him. So, like like Lionel and Raymond and Beesbury, like we are the ones that actually risk stuff because we're fighting all like 6 other people, 7 people that you know can hurt us, right? So I do think at this point, of course, Dunk is mourning the loss of Baylor, who the whole kingdom is going to end up mourning and stuff. But he's doing that thing where he is blaming himself for this, and that I can see where Dunk's coming from. Of like, if I hadn't like needed a 7th person, Baylor would never have put himself out there. He would still be alive. Kind of ignoring the fact that really he still did whatever was needed, right? He understood his vows and he saved Tanzel, and we have you know it's more on Arian's fault here and Makar's fault on what actually transpired. And Dunk will kind of flip on that, I think, later in the episode when he is trying to convince Makar to let him take Egg, right? He's like, there's a line Darren says to Dunk of, you know, Arian wasn't always like that. Um, he was once like a good kid and like, who had fun and misadventures. So that was kind of drilling home the point for Dunk that just because Egg is different from them now doesn't mean, like I think Darren says, like they won't make a man of him yet, right? So there's this underlying current of how do I kind of struggle with the fact that this guy died for me, but then it's really on Arian's fault for one starting the fight with Tanzel, then just because he gets a couple teeth knocked out is doing this whole trial, which then they're trying to put him to death, and then he has to do a trial by combat. And then he one ups him with the trial by 7, and everything is kind of Dunk did nothing wrong, and we had that line from Egg earlier of like, I shaved my head so I wouldn't look like you, brother, right? So there's these lines in here where Dunk is starting to think, Egg could never be like them. But with what Darren is saying about Arian's past and everything, it starts to maybe push Dunk into I got to get that kid out of there so he doesn't become like his brothers.
Yeah, no, I think you make good points. I watching it too. I was thinking about the fact that Dunk again feels like anybody he's around perishes and dies, and I think that that's very difficult on a noble person, and not that he's nobility, but noble in the way that he acts, and he's an honest man, and he's somebody that's been through a lot, like as far as death is concerned. And I think that the more that he's around it, the worse that he is off, because he feels that there is no good in the world. He's very much an optimist, and when things keep happening to him, it would be hard not to feel that as if the world is turning on you. He makes a really good there's a really good line there too, Jordan, that I think gives away what you and I had been. Well, we haven't really been arguing about it. It's more of the fact that like I've now been convinced that he was not a knight, and now we get real confirmation of when Baylor says something along the lines of
Mm.
um, the gods do not like frauds,
Yeah,
and
Lionel says this, and he says, "Then why
yeah,
did they honor
right.
me?" Right?
Right, because I'm a fraud, and I think the only
Yes.
thing you can take away from that is the fact that he had convinced people he was a knight, and he is not a knight,
I've still
and
seen some people try to say he's just being self-deprecating,
yeah,
but
right.
I feel like that, and then we also get the line when we get the flashback to Sir Arlen, which some people take is a vision and not like actually the true past. But I would say we've gotten flashbacks constantly that I would assume this is how it actually played out. But some people think that him wait with the jump scare of him waking up that it was like a dream or vision or something. But because he asked Sir Arlen while he's dying, like, why did you never knight me? Um, and we don't get that answer. And I think that hits even more in the sense of, you know, he doesn't get an answer. Now, you can maybe look into Sir Arlen's story about the penny tree and putting the penny on the tree and coming back for it, and maybe him wanting to like almost like save Dunk from becoming into this entrapment of what Sir Arlen's life was by knighting him. Like if Sir Arlen knights him and he follows the path of Sir Arlen, maybe he didn't want him to follow down that path because he was worried about he wanted a better life for Dunk. But we'll never know, and Dunk will never know why exactly he was never knighted. And I think that hits even more than if like he had answered him anything.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. I mean, obviously, I'm not on the Reddit discourse as much as possible. I try to stay away from Reddit, but I think that's interesting. I would counter with the fact that like he does then put a penny in the tree later on, and then he also is. Uh, I think there's actually a point at the end where you hear thunder clap, and that was back to when we picked up with the show when it was raining and it was thundering, and
Yeah.
that's kind of that callback to that. But I love how much is put into, as somebody who is far from believing in anything like this, but I think that the fact that so much is put into the gods' hands of like I can't believe more so than it is now in society. The gods controlled everything back then. So ultimately, Jordan, all you have to do, which I guess they do this the same today, is blame the gods for everything. So or give credit to the gods for everything. But
But I like that you can look at this as two different ways. He's
yeah,
obviously saying
yeah,
like why would they help me if I'm a fraud? But the gods could be looking at it as you're not a fraud. You're the only one that
right.
actually followed the vows. You're just not a knight by name, right? But you by action, you have done everything as if you were a knight. And they could be, if they do exist, right? They could be um rewarding that for Dunk. And I think that is something that, because some people might say, when we're talking about religious stuff and everything, some people might just say, "Oh, well, we know like more like the red god is like the true god of Westeros because of him bringing back to life Beric Dondarrion and Jon Snow, right?" But you know, there's an option where some of these gods are where they all exist, or it's just something that they believe in. But the main thing is that you can kind of square it away where people might say, well, if he is a fraud, that means the gods don't exist because he won. But you can also look at it as almost divine intervention where he is on the edge, Logan. He is so close to losing uh, just by not even having enough people. And then they knight Sir Raymond, right? And then Baylor rides in at the last second. And then they look like they're going to lose and he wins. And then, so you could almost look at it as divine intervention. There's a few times where he should have lost if they were really true and, you know, he's a fraud. But you could also look at it as there was those few times he almost lost it and they maybe put their hand in it to say, you're not going to lose this trial by 7 because you did the honorable thing, you did the correct thing. And while we're going to take Baylor as kind of like as like a I don't want to say punishment, but it was like retribution as a price for letting you live. And that actually comes back around. And I wonder what this foreshadowing is kind of headed to when he's meeting with Makar and he's struggling with this. Why would they take a prince instead of my foot or my hand or whatever? And he says there's something that like Sir Arlen would always say is like maybe that is needed later down the line. And and Makar's like, oh, so you think they're going to need a hedge knight over Baylor Targaryen? And he says, but maybe that foot is needed for the realm later on down the line. And people think this might be hinting to whatever he does at Summerall that might prevent a bigger catastrophe, or anything like that. So, at some point, Dunk will be needed, and that is why he was spared.
Yeah, and in that, I think that's a great transition to when he goes to meet with Makar and he is summoned and he goes to talk to Makar and it's Makar seems very distraught about his brother, which is something that I didn't think like watching early on in this show, I didn't think he would have much empathy, but he really does seem to be a pretty empathetic person, which is very rare for the Targaryen like line. Um, but I do feel that it is interesting the point that he makes, which is so relevant and true to a lot of things that happen today in today's world and society. And I think it's a very real world. Is that he mentions the fact that they will both hear whispers about the trial and its violence until they're dead, because Dunk could hear the whispers of the famish wouldn't happen or this wouldn't have happened if Baelor was still around. But because the Hedge Knight killed Baelor, he is not around to fix the problems of the realm. But there's also the aspect of like if Makar were to become king, or if Makar and the family do opposite of what Baelor would have done, then it's going to be blamed on the Targaryens of like if Baelor was around, this wouldn't have happened underneath this regime. So It is. It's very fascinating.
Yeah,
And
that Maekar line is, it is funny because it kind of plays into what George said that we talked about last episode, right? Of Baylor would have been a really good king, right? But Maekar's point is if there's just bad crops one year that is out of the king's hands, none of that stuff matters, right? It's like that wouldn't have happened under Baylor, right?
yep.
There's a drought.
Yep.
Oh, that wouldn't have happened under Baylor, right? Like that is, and we learn that the king is kind of on near his end, that this might happen very soon where Maekar is kind of put in this position of being king when he was never really groomed to be king the way Baylor was, and that's going to probably put them in a spot that again kind of sets off the course of events of Westeros that we later know. Uh, I think there was something else you mentioned there that I'm trying to remember that I wanted to bring up, but I think it was about what you were saying on they're both going to hear these whispers as it's he's saying, hey, I know people are going to, he says it like people think I'm probably killed him on purpose, right? And we know, and he says he didn't, like he probably didn't know that we learned Baylor's wearing somebody else's armor, and that is part of why, from what we know, he it's like a little tighter, I guess. So when he hit him with the mace, there isn't much to go. So it goes into the skull, and I guess it just held it there well enough that once they took it off, it was over. But you know, I'm sure whenever Maekar and Baylor were practicing or playing or sparring in the past, they probably had their armors. They probably weren't going at full speed or knowing what's going on. But it's just one of those things that he's going to have to live with the same way that he's going to have to live with them saying this wouldn't happen under Baylor. It's now like, oh, he probably killed him on purpose like that. And the same thing with like Dunk's going to hear, like you said, the whole, he died for that hedge knight. They're going to put blame on Dunk for anytime Baylor's name comes up. The two people that are going to be mentioned next are going to be Dunk and Maekar, right? It's going to be like, oh, Baylor, like it's going to be, if this wouldn't happen under Baylor, it's going to be like that damn hedge knight got him killed, or that damn Maekar got him killed and became king. So it's just like these two are like tied together for like eternity now. Whenever one of them is mentioned, that they're probably gonna be followed up by whatever side you end on. It's kind of like real politics, right? Where it'll be like, oh, the Democrats did this, the Republicans did this. Anytime these things get brought up, they're going to be brought up with Baylor, and they have to live with that. They have to live with that. I think Dunk actually makes out pretty good because we learned in the Game of Thrones, right, that he has like 8 pages of his stuff in the King's Guard
Oh,
book
he's
or
a
whatever.
legend.
Like
Yeah.
he is a legend, and even then, like old Nan talking to Bran, like, "Do you want to
Right.
hear more stories of Sir Duncan the Tall?" So he is obviously this legend that probably ends up better than what Maekar's name is going to be thrown about. But I'm sure there are corners of Westeros that will kind of slander his name as well.
Yeah, I think that's what would be fascinating. Like we talked about last episode of like if you started with Game of Thrones now, and my wife has never seen any of this, and so if I show her Game of Thrones and then jump to this instead of House of the Dragon, like it would be very like whoa, like the Targaryens were, they were a big house, like they were rulers of the realm, and now they've had a huge fall from grace, and now they're intertwined with other families. I do wonder, Jordan, like I don't know because I've not now read the next novella and the
I
future of
haven't
this.
started it yet either.
Yeah,
I'm
I,
waiting a little bit, but I'm going
yeah,
to listen soon.
I just wonder because there's a moment in between the scene of like when he's under the tree and when he goes and talks to Maekar is when he's talking to Valar or Targaryen, which is Baelor's son, and he
Mhm.
seems to be if he's anything like his father, which I'm assuming he might be, he probably honest and noble person as well, and he, you can tell he's got a little bit of a grudge now with Dunk because you killed my dad. And then he often he questions right away. He goes, why would the gods take him and leave
Yeah.
you? he's very pissed about it. So it's interesting because now as we wrap up, this season, I mean, the Targaryens, except for Egg, they're all seeking Sir Dunk at some point for maybe revenge, maybe some avenging, and then also you've got uh, Valar, who's not really been much of the story at all yet. So I wonder, because I have seen where maybe there are some of the characters here that aren't relevant in the next season.
Yeah, from what I know, I'm pretty sure it's just Dunk and Egg,
Yeah, that's
like,
what I've heard.
for the next one.
Right. They said not
So
until later would they come back into the fold.
yeah, yeah, because I think some of these characters pop up again in either the third one or are supposed to in George's outlines of the other stuff. So, I'm kind of actually excited about seeing a whole new cast with these 2 characters because it's like
Same. Yep.
almost like The Mandalorian where you have
It
like,
is. Yeah.
the kid Mando
It
and the
is.
kid,
Yeah.
going around doing stuff. But, okay, how about this? We learned Raymond well, this is what I was talking about a while ago about painting his shield. I believe in the novella it happens before the battle, but, when he's pissed off that Stefan switched sides. They usually have the red apple, and we now have them being like the green apple fossil ways. So a little bit of a change to their crest to kind of be an offshoot branch of what the Fossilways were because he was so upset about like I don't want to be a red apple Fossilway after what Stefan did. So he makes it green. I think that's really cool.
Sour apples. That's what he is. He's
Yeah.
sour on the name, but also I love the mini Raymond things we get here, and that's kind
I
of
was
why I was
gonna
like,
say, yeah, like
you,
he paints it green, but then he
yeah,
goes with the redhead here.
yeah, yeah. I see. So there's a
You
point in
can't
the
take
very
the red out of the Fossilway.
right. There's a point at the very beginning when Baratheon calls him Apple Boy, and
Yeah,
then there's a point where when Raymond is talking to him, and well, one the also not only the green apple, Jordan, the shield looks like an apple core. That is so cool the way that
yeah,
it's shaped in like an apple core.
yes,
I love the way that that looks. But just the fact that also Raymond believes that he got this girl pregnant, and she is clearly
yeah.
weeks in, like months
That is
in.
funny. That is
Like,
something I've seen people actually be upset about because 'cause they're like, "Does that make his whole line a bastard line now?" Which is a question, I guess, but it could just be that the first kid they have is a
right.
female that maybe
Exactly.
doesn't
Yeah.
have to marry as a
Yes.
lord or
Are
whatever, but
I was gonna say, you know how many bastards there are before
he can
actual
also
legit children?
he can also legitimize yeah, exactly, he can
Mhm.
legitimize nobody's
Right.
gonna question it.
Is not.
Nobody questioned really the Joffrey and stuff until, John Aaron
Hell,
and Ned found it, so
right, yeah. Hell, John didn't know who he was related to for a long time, so
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, "Who am
exactly.
I?"
Um, but yeah, so we find out he is married. Red is what they've called her, but her real name is Rowan. And she is, uh, I don't know, like I guess she's posing as not a prostitute, or maybe she was never fully a, or maybe she's a high class prostitute because she's in the stands watching
Right.
the thing earlier. So I mean, uh, who knows? But I guess, but she gets married to Raymond, and he's I like the wink he gives Dunk,
Like, "Look what
like,
I did."
"Yeah,
Yeah.
look what I did." And then immediately it's
I said,
followed up by
"Oh?"
him not knowing how long it takes to have a kid.
Dunk's reaction to it was like, "Oh?" Like,
Yeah,
"Really?"
yeah.
Her and then again, when he said it, he goes, I'm not sure how well, I'll just let him believe it." Like,
Yes.
we'll just let the guy believe it, which is great. And then I mean, just I wish there was gonna be more with Raymond, but I don't know how the second goes.
I like
Like,
that he brought out Sweetfoot
yes, that
and
was cool.
The Dunk actually then gifts
Right.
Sweetfoot to her, and we know she likes apples, and now she can have apples all the time because she's with the
Apple
Fossil
Boy.
is. But it's this is something that was better than the novella because they mentioned maybe how he would want to buy her back, and they never really talk about if he did or what. I think he just left her there because he never had the winnings. But you have Raymond Fossaway, who is now a knight and maybe has some funds that he's able to um make the purchase to gift it to Dunk, who, that was Arlen's horse. So I think he just wants to know Sweetfoot's gonna be okay, but it doesn't feel like it's right for him to take her. So he then gifts her back to Raymond. I thought that was really cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd have really loved to see Raymond again sometime, but yeah, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen next season anyway. Um, okay, so then Makar calls him there, right? And they, like you said in this meeting, they have this meeting of, Egg is fond of you. I'm going to invite you to Summer Hall to take him as a squire, and I'm going to finish your training. And Dunk declines. Egg overhears all of this stuff, and he says, "I'm done with princes." Uh, but we get to like we said, Darren is talking to Dunk about like, hey, this my brother Arian wasn't always like this, which kind of leaves it to Dunk to be like, you know what, I have to go back and kind of get Egg from this. And while that's going on, Egg sees his hair growing back, right? And instead of cutting it this time with the knife, he says, I'm gonna go cut Arian instead. He goes in,
with a
he
little knife. I was like, damn, this kid's ruthless.
He goes into the bedroom, but Makar is thankfully there, I guess, or else his story takes a whole nother turn and he
That was a
stops him.
powerful moment. Like when he hugs him, I was like,
Yeah.
that was
Well, we
yeah,
don't know how much she's ever done that, right? So I'm
right,
sure that's
right.
probably a big deal.
Yeah, and Egg was clearly upset. Egg was going full because he had remember there was that story where Arian had come in and said he was
With the
going to chop off
knife, yeah,
his
and make a
his
sister.
yes, and yeah, he would often threaten Egg about that. But no, I love this, and we get confirmation that Arian was banned to the Free Cities because he's got to go learn how to be a real heir to a throne at some point, possibly.
Yeah, so say what you want about Makar, but it seems like he's putting the right steps in here to be like,
Yep.
we got to get Arian settled because he could not fly off the handle like he did here, and we got to get him on the right track again. And yeah, did they mention where Darien was going? Where Darren went? Or
He said he knows that his son's a drinker and
oh,
dreamer,
okay, yeah. So they
and
didn't
he's
say
and is a lost cause. But like, I will say this: he
he's a
was
nice guy. He
he
just
is
drinks a lot.
yeah. But Makar too, like Makar went and was looking for Daron, and then also looking for Egg. The
Yeah,
guy
yeah. He
clearly
cares
cares
about
about
his
his
kids.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's very unnatural for I feel for Targaryen. Targaryens just felt like fire breathing dragons that have always just been ruthless in what they do. So I don't know. There's a lot of care here that you see and actually about being good people. Like there is care about people dying on the Targaryen line, but it's almost like because it would eliminate their numbers. Whereas this is much more of like, no, I actually genuinely care about them being good people in society. Like they're trying to grow from here rather
I think
than
that's what's different about like this and House of the Dragon. We don't get enough Targaryens in the main show to really say. But in House of the
true.
Dragon, right, we have they're all just worried about the throne and
Yes.
whose claim it is.
Yep.
They're not really worried about being good people. Um like at any point. And in fact, Rhaenyra ends up marrying her
Right.
bad boy uncle, who uh is like sometimes a good guy, sometimes not. But the whole worry was about legitimizing my claim to the throne. While this is like, you know what? If I'm going to be king, that means my sons are going to be set up. So let me get them
Yeah.
in shape for this, right? Like
Yeah.
Arian's going to go to Free Cities. He's going to get time to atone. Egg, I want this Dunk guy who Egg really likes. That's the thing too. Like Makar could have just been like, you know what? I don't care if you like that guy, Egg. He is the cause of my brother's death. I am not going to let you hang out with him. But he actually offers him a whole position. So I'm going to get you training. Um, Now, when he goes back to Makar, he says, I want to take him on the road with me, right? And he will sleep where I sleep and in in ditches. I think it's funny that Makar says my sons like don't sleep in that, but it's like Darren has definitely been in a ditch
Yeah.
drunk.
I
Okay,
was gonna say multiple ditches, multiple women. Guy's a mess.
So, so Makar, we're kind of left with him just leaving the room, not knowing what his decision is.
Yeah.
And
He
that's
wants
how it is
more.
in the novella.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of a change here, maybe, depending on, I guess, how it plays out. But we get Egg, meeting up with Dunk before he leaves after the Sweetfoot moment and him being like, hey, my father said I can go with you. And we get a little like almost like post credit stinger, right? After it says Night of the Nine Kingdoms, we get the post credit stinger with Makar and him looking at all of his kids and being like, where's Egg? And I saw that coming. Like once he's like counting heads. I'm like, oh yeah, he did not get permission from his father. He left. So it's very almost like similar to the beginning of the show when him and Darren left, right? And uh, kind of got derailed a bit. But now this time it's only Egg.
Yeah. No, I thought it was interesting just because the whole thing was Dunk is gonna come to Summerhall and raise the squire, but also Makar was gonna train Dunk with his best army and Knights Guard of like, you're going to learn how to become basically he was gonna be ushered in probably to the King's Guard, like the knights, like to protect the king. And now Dunk doesn't know this, but obviously Egg has abandoned ship again. I will say, I think maybe it didn't dawn on me right away that that's what he had done. I was thinking maybe he did go because Makar, but then I was also like, Makar would have summoned Dunk to tell him that he was taking Egg, and so I was like, okay, so I'm pretty sure this kid just randomly walked off and just uh, basically abandoned ship once again.
And
But
in the novella, sorry, there is like
yeah,
he mentions he has like a ring or something from his father that would be like if he gets into trouble, he kind of shows that so people know he is a Targaryen and to kind of
oh,
lay off
okay,
of him.
yeah,
And in this, so that led to people thinking that Makar did give permission in the book. But I
okay.
mean, honestly, Egg could have taken it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and then Gollum's gonna be after it. So, like,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's the One
we get a
Ring.
nice
Yeah,
crossover here with Lord of the
nice cross.
Rings,
Yeah,
because it did feel very Lord of the Rings-esque at the end, but,
this whole show did. Feels very
y
Fellowship of the
yeah,
Ring.
and the
It was
music,
very yes, the
right,
music's been part of that. The
yeah,
green
yes,
landscapes. Yeah.
yes, the trees, the breeze, everything else. I mean, it really did, it felt like that, but the whole thing was, like, Dunk is Dunk is now going to be, like, now Dunk's gonna be in trouble because Egg's with him, and he doesn't know that Egg is probably just lying and said he just was going with Dunk. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they build that out. I think obviously they'll catch back up with him eventually, but I do think the whole next season, Jordan. I think we just might get where are they going, Dorne. I think they might just get uh, Dunk and Egg in a whole new element that we've never really seen them in, with new faces we've not ever really
Yeah.
met before.
Yeah,
Pretty
that
cool.
sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun. You know, I don't know if anything's gonna come of this because I do think that once Makar realizes Egg is gone, he probably knows where he went, and at this point, it's like you know what? It's out of my hands at this point. Like, I don't know if he's gonna send people after him. I think at that point, it's like, the damn kid got what he wanted. Damn. All right. And then like he might know that it is good for him. It's just maybe he couldn't make that decision. Maybe he couldn't square it away with himself to be like, I'm going to let my son do this. So when Egg takes it on himself, it might be like, you know what? I trust that guy. I offered him the job here, but it seems like Egg really wants to go with him and be it. Like it's fine. He might be like, hey, my kid's not gonna be sleeping in ditches or in taverns and stuff. But if Egg's cool with it, it might be like, you know what? Forget about it. Like I trust it. I trust that guy's gonna take care of him. He likes him. They both have like this fun bond relationship that it's just I think he's just gonna be a little upset at first, but I don't know if like we're gonna get, especially Makar's actor. I think said he's not in season 2, so I don't know if we're getting really like, oh, he sent people after me to get me back. I think he might just be like swallow it
Yeah, how do
swallow
you
the
find
pride
them?
and be
Yeah,
like,
right.
it is what it is at this point.
Yeah. I think it's hard to find people. Plus, at the end, I think there's a reason they mentioned 9. I mean, I'm assuming Ira Parker would be willing to do, like he said, as many as possible. 9, I think that's maybe where we're headed. They do visit. I mean, obviously, this is the title of the show, Night of the Seven Kingdoms or Night of the Nine Kingdoms. I think that they're building into them going to, obviously Dorne is on that list and that's where they're headed. And Egg's like, I've never been over the Red Mountains before. And
Mhm.
that whole interaction, though, I love that. Like, I texted you. It was like my favorite line of the whole episode was when he goes, "Are you crazy, boy?" And he goes, "Well, does that matter?"
Yeah.
I was like, that
That's
sounds about right.
another that's another fun hint,
Yeah.
his lineage is the one that becomes the Mad
Right.
King,
Yep.
and people think maybe he went mad in Summerall. I mean,
It would be
it's a fun
fascinating.
little
I
maybe
did like that.
foreshadowing.
Yeah, I did like that because I was like, yeah, it might be fitting for what he becomes. Because I do. I think, dude, when he's gonna go stab his brother at night, that is not somebody that is completely innocent, as Egg appears to be throughout most of this show. Like, if you didn't know any of this context or leading up to this, I mean, what a plot twisty kind of turn show it was. It was just at every turn it had something really cool that I wasn't really expecting. And as someone who is reading the novella, trying to not go forward in the story, it did.
Yeah.
It really did have some really nice twists. But that ending, though, Jordan, was one of the most beautiful. It gave me chills, like with Sir Arlen.
Oh, yeah, where and then he
Yeah.
starts going the other path,
Yeah.
he's no longer this, like, shadow, over top of Dunk. I think is one way you can look at it, right? Where it's like the ghost of Arlen is
Yes.
no longer hanging over me. I now am putting my wisdom that I've learned from Arlen and from my adventures onto this kid, but like I don't need that shackle anymore of why didn't you knight me? Why didn't like I feel like that's kind of shrugged off of him at this point as he goes forward with Egg. Uh anything that we missed in this episode?
No, I mean, there I will be sad because the Baratheons, I don't think Lionel will be around. Maybe I do picture at least one of them coming, like, or being in Dorne that we're used to seeing. It would be, I mean, maybe not, but maybe, I don't know. But there's been so many things that I've seen because they've already started filming season 2.
Yeah, apparently
Where
Dunk's gonna have his
Dunk's got his long
long
hair.
hair.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of it too. It's pretty cool. I was like, that's fitting because, and he goes, I've always had pretty long hair, but he goes, they've asked me to grow it out to be more um lined with a book.
Yeah,
So
he has long hair and like I don't know if it's really mentioned in the novella because like when I was listening to it, I was picturing Peter Claffey, and
yeah.
so I may have missed if they specified long hair, but the um the graphic novel version that they did of this, had him with like long hair and stuff. But yeah, I mean that was common back then. A lot of long hair back then. I mean, it's a fantasy world, but in like medieval times, which is this is all based on. They weren't going to the barber every
They weren't
couple
even
weeks or
bathing every, yeah.
right, right.
They were bathing in rivers when they could find them. So
Yeah.
I'm sure hygiene was not of the caliber. We did get pissing in this episode. I think we
Yeah,
either
I
got,
know. I saw that. I was like,
yeah.
there it is. Last episode didn't really have anything.
Yeah.
This
I was gonna
episode
say,
was like time to pee again. It was Lionel
yeah.
peeing.
And clearly an older man trying to pee because it was stop and go for, I was like, I'm not looking forward to that life.
That
That just,
prosthetic wasn't working right.
oh,
They were like, "Oh man."
yeah, yeah. But like, man, don't look forward to being older. But there's a lot of questions I have. Obviously, with Dorn, I think that's where Tansel's from, is she not?
Yes, that's where they said she
Yeah.
ran back to. So
Mhm.
I think that and that's what Egg says down here they have good puppet shows, right? So I think he's kind of like almost being a good wingman here of
Oh,
Dunk.
100%. Yeah.
Let's go
Let's
find your
go.
woman.
Your
But
four-fingered woman.
from what I know, I think from stuff is that like at least in the next two novellas, she does not appear. Now, of course, they've made changes. They could change that, but I think it's going to be almost like this endless quest where he maybe just never finds her, and it's like that, like
She was
almost
here, but now she's not. She left. She went to
yeah, almost like
Westeros.
a what could have been, uh, and this thing where it's like the whole reason I'm on this path right now is because I saved her life, and I'll just never be able to have anything happen with that.
Do you
It's a
think
very somber, like, it's bittersweet thing.
Yeah. Do you think that that's the idea, is try to get them as many kingdoms as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've already. I think George has said where the fourth and fifth ones are supposed to be set. One of them is supposed to be set in Winterfell, so I do
I
think
was
we're
gonna
going to like
say, I
the
was
north. We're
wondering.
going to go there,
Yeah,
and Egg is kind of messing with him a bit with the nine because he counts the Riverlands and somewhere
yeah,
else I forget, but they are not traditionally separate kingdoms. They're usually with like a as part of one of the other
so
kingdoms.
maybe
So
the fall of 2 kingdoms that come.
yeah, so I don't know. So that is um I did like that the title card kind of did
Imperialism.
that with it too. But
Right.
it's no, I do think this one is Dorne. I don't know where the third one goes. I guess I can quickly see. Um we have the second one is in Dorne, or they're heading to Dorne, so I don't um the third one go is when they are heading towards Winterfell. I'm thinking they get maybe they don't get there because I think there's another one supposed to be at because there's the fourth one is called the She Wolves of Winterfell, which he was working on. So I'm assuming something happens on the third one on their way to Winterfell, and then the fourth one would be at Winterfell. So probably at least going close to as many of those as they can.
Yeah. I just figured, like, you got that many, there's a lot of places I think that they can explore that would be fun. I mean, different settings that they could have. Winterfell would be really interesting just because of
Starks.
the White Walkers technically around.
I'm guessing they're kind of like in hiding above the wall
That's
at
what I
this
was
point.
thinking. Yeah.
Because we learned that what Craster and stuff above the wall were kind of giving his kids over to the White Walkers as tribute. So I assume that they were just kind of like recouping
Kind
from
of, yeah.
when they were originally thought to be defeated, kind
Yeah.
of rebuilding.
Building your army. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're probably up there. I don't know if that would ever. I
I was
doubt
gonna
it'd
say,
ever
I
come
doubt
into
that they
play
would
since
run into,
nobody
yeah,
believes it
new,
being a true thing. But
'cause they would have taken it back on, "Hey, dude, you'll never believe what I saw."
I mean, maybe you could even have like if Darren shows up again, you can have
I
him
guess, yeah,
have a
have one of them.
dream
Yeah,
about something.
it's snowing.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No, I guess final thoughts on the episode or the
Yeah.
season. I just I again, I've told many people this, that Jordan, there are still a lot of people out there that loved Game of Thrones that have no idea what this is. Like, no clue. And I'm talking people that watched this pretty religiously when the show was airing. Because I've had multiple people either reach out or something and say, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? There's a new Game of Thrones show. So that's still mind blowing to me that there are still people out there that have not, because I do, and I've seen many people put this amongst the ranks of some of the best Game of Thrones stuff that they've seen, at least in the top two
Hmm.
or three. So um, there were really good seasons in that show, the first one. And I do feel like this is right up there, and it's one of those shows that I can go back and watch, especially because it's shorter, so many times after this, and I'm ready for season 2 to start like tomorrow. So
Yeah. No, I think this show was fantastic. I can't. It feels even better knowing that like each season is its own story. So we're not like while we're left with like what will happen next season. It's not like a big cliffhanger. They're off going on to their next journey, and we had closure from the rest of the season. And you know, knowing that it's happening and coming out next year helps even more in that regard, because you know we know that we don't have to wait forever to see this the way that we do on certain shows. But it's been a blast. It's been a blast talking about this with you, Logan. Anything episodes of anything on your podcast you want to plug as we head out of here?
Yeah, I know you have something similar, but the Scrubs is back, baby. So we are talking Scrubs over on the Screen Society podcast, as well as an HBO counterpart in The Pit, which is continuing to be the best show right alongside A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So I personally believe HBO Max has two of the best shows going right now as far as streaming is concerned. So I'm looking forward to talking about all of that stuff. But yeah, Jordan, what do you got going on?
Well, yeah, I just recorded a 2.5 hour.
I saw that in the log. I was like, dang, 2.5 hours. I was like, I went an hour and a half and I felt like I was long winded. I couldn't stop.
The first like 50 minutes we were talking about our history with the original show. So I mean, but yeah, the rest of it, we get on some tangents as we're going over there. But over on Films for the Very First Time, we're doing a special episode where we're just talking about the Scrubs revival premiere as well. And kind of like I just said, our history with the show, my friend Casey, when he started watching it, what his thoughts on the original were when I started watching it. And then, we dive into the revival. And then we had, so that's a special episode that'll be uploading soon along with this one. And, we finished, now that we're finished this show, I'm getting ready for Daredevil at the end of March, I guess. Born Again season 2, that we're preparing for that. And then April has Maul Shadow Lord. So we are ramping up over here for another busy year on Marvel, DC, Star Wars, all that good stuff.
Is there any Lord of the Rings coming?
Rings of Power season 3 is tentatively, I think, September, October. So
okay.
Hunt for Golem is next year.
Yeah.
Which is the movie that they're doing.
Yeah.
Ian McKellen returning as Gandalf once again. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what we have in store for this season, or this year rather, of 2026. They just re-released Fire Red and Leaf Green, and people were playing that while watching the Scrubs revival, and they're like, "What year is this?"
Did you see that? It was
yes.
So that happened, and then, oh man, damn it! There was a band that just released music for the first time since like that time period. So it was like that, and then that
like I'm
happened.
listening to this while doing
and
it.
then well, this is awful, but people are like, U.S.
War
is
in the Middle
conflict
East,
with
yeah.
the Middle East. I was like, yep, that sounds right too. I
Yep.
was like, shit, just bring it all back.
We're
Just
bringing
bring it
back
all
those
back.
early alts vibes right now.
Yeah, now we just need somebody to throw a shoe at a president, and we'll be set.
All right. Well, you can follow me at Soups and Sabers on all of our social media. Logan's are also in the description below because they're all different for the Screen Society podcast. Thank you all for watching and listening along with us. We'll catch you next time.